Hi everyone, I'm back in Providence, Rhode Island. It's November 14th, 2025, the day after the House Senate hearing of Rhode Island questioning RiDOT Director Peter Alviti about the issues related to the emergency closure of the Washington Bridge and everything that's followed since then. The former federal prosecutor, Cunha, did an excellent job. He was well prepared. He frankly asked a series of questions that made Director Alviti just look utterly foolish. It appeared to me that Director Alviti does not possess the requisite capabilities to be the director of any DOT. It's just amazing that his basic defense was that since the DOT doesn't possess any expertise when it comes to bridge issues, whether it's bridge design, bridge construction, scheduling, estimating, inspection work, that they're 100% reliant on outside consultants. And if these consultants don't perform their work properly, RiDOT staff is in no position to determine whether or not that's the case. And instead, if something goes awry, their only recourse is to go to attorneys and pursue lawsuits. I can tell you, I've been in the engineering practice for nearly 40 years now. The last 25 years has been dedicated to primarily construction phase testing of bridge foundations. I interact with numerous DOTs. It is common for DOTs to rely on engineering consultants, but they still provide the requisite oversight in my experience. I'm from the Midwest. I have my reports on deep foundation testing questioned all the time about, hey, I saw this on the report, what does this mean? What about this indication on the plot? And to have a DOT that's basically saying, hey, we don't know anything that's going on, we just uncritically accept the work products from our consultants and go from there. You know, Director Alviti didn't know anything about who his program manager was, the person at the DOT who is in charge of these bridge inspections. He didn't know whether or not drawings existed of the former Westbound Bridge. I have those drawings on my own computer because they were included in various requests for proposals that were issued over the last couple of years. He just showed time and again that he is not capable of being adequately engaged or knowledgeable about the primary duties, in my opinion, that are involved in running a Department of Transportation. Okay, I'm out at Washington Bridge with Rob Cody. Let me ask you, what do you think the aftermath of this hearing is going to be? I'm not from Rhode Island. I've only been here twice now. How do you think this plays out from here?
Well, it's no surprise and no secret that Rhode Island is well known for covering up for political agendas. However, I think the important fact here is that the general public wants the truth. We don't want a lawsuit that covers up the truth just for the sake of covering up incompetence on the part of a state-funded agency. The people want the truth, and we want to be comfortable that the people that are in charge of the Department of Transportation have the safety and the best interest of the residents and their tax dollars at the pinnacle of their responsibilities.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks very much, Rob. Let's keep looking around at this bridge. One thing I want to mention is when I was out on the bridge with Rob Cody, he noticed that the scupper drains for Bridge 200, the bridge carrying 6 lanes of traffic, were all clogged up. And this is right next to the area of one of the major expansion joints that they spent over $500,000 redoing. If you have clogged drains, you have water going through places in the bridge where they shouldn't be going, particularly salty water in the winter. And the very next day, we were out there on Friday. On Saturday, Rob told me a crew came out overnight and cleaned out the scupper drains. I was joking with Rob, he should send the DOT a bill for his inspection services. All right, let's get into the committee hearing. This was on Thursday, November 13th, 2025 at 2 p.m. It was really long at 5 hours. I was sitting towards the back of this hearing room with my wife. One interesting thing is that the agenda posted for this hearing included a lot of exhibits. And for the first time, I guess you could consider it the official release of the metallurgical report. I had a copy earlier furnished to me through that trove of data through what's going on in Rhode Island, which I thought was interesting they included that. So I want to go through these key parts of this hearing. I also want to thank State Senate Minority Leader Jessica De La Cruz for inviting me to this hearing. She and her staff were great, really enjoyed attending the hearing, and I had the opportunity to meet with some of the local media. I gave an interview with WPRI as well as WJAR, and segments were airing on the local news there. But let's jump into the key segments, I think, for this hearing.
I want to focus briefly on the specific issues that led to the closure of the bridge, specifically the post-tension tie-down rods, with which I think we're all fairly familiar.
Okay.
Can we agree that it was the discovery that at least some of those rods had been severed that prompted the closure of the bridge in December of 23?
That initiated it, yes.
Right. And would you agree that part of the reason for that was the conclusion that those tie-down rods were critical to the bridge's load-carrying capacity?
Yes.
Okay. And would that included specifically the segments of the bridge at Piers 6 and 7?
That's what was conveyed to me, yes.
Okay. And in fact, that was what you had described to the public in December of 23 as the reason for the closure of the bridge, that these pins, as they were sometimes referred to at that time, or rods, had ruptured and they were critical to the structural integrity of the bridge.
That's what we knew at that time.
Okay. As we sit here today, you still believe that those rods were critical to the structural integrity of the bridge, correct?
I do.
Okay. And that with the rod's failure, there was the risk of catastrophic failure, I believe was the phrase that was used. Would you agree with that?
That's what was being conveyed to me at that point in time, yes.
And just to drill down on it a little bit, catastrophic failure means, in layman's terms, collapse, the risk that the bridge or part of the bridge could fall down?
Now, take it as whatever meaning you want. A catastrophic failure would have resulted in a number of different things.
Well, I don't want to take it as the meaning I want. I believe...
Primarily, it would have put people's safety at risk.
Well, let me ask you this. I believe on December the 11th of 2023, you were interviewed at a press conference and you were asked the question, now when you talk about the potential for a catastrophic failure, do you mean a collapse or partial collapse? And your answer was, quote, that's correct.
The potential was conveyed to me that the potential existed, yes.
Okay.
I don't know why Director Alviti is having such difficulty with the concept of catastrophic collapse. He's the one that used that term, and its meaning is fairly obvious, I think. Now, I want to go back to a recent video I did on, at the time, the leaked forensic report that Jenny Elsener had prepared for mostly the anchor rod issues for the Westbound Washington Bridge. The rod breakage was discovered in December 2023. The previous inspection was done in July of 2023. And that's when the bridge was closed. Director Alviti with RiDOT came out and said, hey, the rod broke between July 2023 and December 2023 without offering any evidence.
In July, the inspection was made, and the pins that are in question here, the anchor rods that are in question here, were in adequate, serviceable shape. Once in a while, an extraordinary event will happen, as our engineers are telling us happened in this case. Some kind of outside force that was extraordinary, over and above the normal use of everyday use of the bridge, happened between July and now. We certainly will be having a look at the forensic analysis of, hopefully at least providing a bucket of potential explanations of what could have caused that failure between July and now.
Are you aware of any information in the July 23rd report? And I think based on what you just said, the answer would be no, that would speak definitively to whether those rods, any of those rods, had fractured as of the date of that inspection.
No, I think the response that we gave when asked for any information pertaining to those rods, the response that our attorneys gave is the response, that we didn't have any information on that.
So no information whatsoever as to their condition?
That's what our attorneys have reported to you, yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask, just to make sure that the record is clear, for each of these 11 inspections between July of 2015 and July of 2023, Are you aware of any instance in which anybody at RiDOT specifically brought the condition of the post-tension tie-down rods to the attention of the contractor before the inspection?
I'm not aware.
Do you have any reason to believe that such communications took place?
I have no knowledge of 700 employees' communications with thousands of other people. I personally don't.
Okay. Are you aware of any instance in which RiDOT asked about the condition of those tie-down rods either before, during, or after the inspection?
I have no recollection of that.
Are you aware, I think we talked about the July of 2023 report, are you aware of any explicit references to what the condition of the tie-down rods was in any of those 11 reports?
I personally have no knowledge of that.
Were people at risk crossing the bridge prior to December 11th, 2023?
I can't say with certainty because I can't say with certainty. There are a lot of factors in it was a complex structure, and I think by the very reports and analysis that you saw, there are suppositions and assumptions that are made in these reports. I think all with a good intent to try and frame the problem and the issue.
RiDOT has a document called a bridge inspection manual, doesn't it?
Yes, we do.
That document, at least in its present form, has been around since, I believe, 2013. There were some revisions in 2016, but it's largely the same document. Is that your understanding?
I have no knowledge of what the revisions of that have been, but I know it's been around, yes.
Okay. If we could bring up Exhibit K. The Rhode Island Bridge Inspection Manual, is that based on Federal Highway Administration standards?
Yes.
Okay. And one of the things that this manual does is it defines certain roles with respect to bridge inspections. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
The first of those is the program manager or statewide program manager, Exhibit L if we could. That individual is a RiDOT employee?
That's correct.
Okay. Who's currently the state program manager, or is there more than one?
I'm sorry, I don't have his name here in front of me, but we've had several over the last 10 years.
Okay. How many have you had over the past 10 years?
I can't be certain. It was several.
Okay. You don't know the name of the state program manager?
Say it again, please.
You don't know the name of your state program manager for bridges?
I don't recall his name.
Per your manual, if I'm reading this correctly, the program manager is, quote, the individual in charge of the bridge inspection program who provides overall leadership within the bridge inspection program and provides guidance to bridge inspection team leaders when requested.
I'm sorry, where are you reading from?
I'm reading from section 2.1.
I'm sorry, I don't.
It's up on the screen.
Okay. The highlighted portion?
Top section, 2.11. Is that your understanding of what the program manager's duties are?
Among other things, yes,
Okay.
that is.
Is there one statewide program manager, or are there multiple managers for different parts of RiDOT's inventory, if you understand my question? In other words, is every bridge in Rhode Island under the purview of one statewide program manager?
I believe that's the case.
Okay. The current statewide program manager, I know we established you don't remember his name. How long has that individual been in his or her job?
I think for 2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years. Throughout the period of time since the closure of the Washington Bridge?
I believe so, yes.
Do you meet with this person regularly?
You know, I don't.
You don't?
No.
Okay. Is there...
I mean, I believe that I've met with him several times during this process.
Okay.
During the last year.
And would that be true of his predecessor, the person who was in the job a little bit more than 2-3 years ago?
Yeah, I don't recall, but it could be that I met with them.
So since the closure of the Washington Bridge, you haven't had any meetings with the statewide program manager about the Washington Bridge?
I believe I have
Okay.
on 1 or 2 occasions, yes.
You don't remember who that individual is?
I don't. I feel bad that I don't. I should, but I don't know that person's name as we sit here.
How many employees do you oversee at RiDOT?
700.
700. The statewide program manager, is that someone who sits at headquarters with you, or are they out in the field?
They are in the same building, but we have several hundred people in our building.
One thing I want to point out is RiDOT Director Peter Alviti appears each week on Gene Felicente's show on WPRO on this segment, Ask the DOT. Each segment's about a half hour each week, and let's say he goes there 40 times a year. So in the last 2 years, he spent 40 hours going on this program. And it's pretty light fare. You could think of Director Alviti as the Santa Claus of potholes and traffic signals. And as such, I think Gene Felicente might be considered Santa's helper. But if you consider that he spent 40 hours in the last 2 years going on this program, if he had just spent a fraction of his time trying to figure out who his program manager was for bridge inspections, he would have done a lot better in serving the public, in my view.
If we can move to Section 2.13, I want to make sure that I understand the responsibilities of this individual correctly. Your bridge manual provides that the state program manager is assigned the duties and responsibilities for bridge inspection, reporting, and inventory. These duties and responsibilities may then be delegated by the statewide program manager to project managers, consultants, and team leaders within the state. Although the statewide program manager may choose to delegate some or all functions to other bridge inspection personnel, the statewide program manager retains all responsibility for bridge inspection operations for which he or she was assigned. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Is that an accurate description of the responsibilities of this person or this office?
I think that's accurate.
Okay. This sounds like a fairly important position. Wouldn't you agree, Director?
Every position in DOT, all 700 are important, and this has its place, and it is an important position, sure.
I don't dispute that all 700 of your employees have important roles to play, but I guess my question is, I read this language as saying that when it comes to bridge inspections, the buck stops with the program manager. Do you disagree with that?
Well, only insofar as in the structure of DOT, the program manager does do what this paragraph said. They assign those responsibilities to, I think in the words of this, project managers, parentheses, consultants. And that is a very key phrase in this. And I think that is very much what a lot of what we're talking about today needs to be put in perspective of. The program manager themselves, or any of the personnel at DOT, do not have the ability to perform the functions that are called for in order to create an inspection report or to be able to determine the accuracy of that report.
And so separate and apart from whatever liability they may have, as the individual ultimately responsible for contracting with those companies, do you believe they did an adequate job with respect to these 11 inspections?
Apparently not.
Okay. Do you believe that RiDOT should have been able to detect that at the time?
As I said before, our organization is set up as a project management organization. It's not one that possesses the expertise on which to make that kind of determination.
So Boston Globe reported just last night that the state program manager for DOT here in Rhode Island is a gentleman named Christopher Hart. That's the name that escaped Director Alviti's memory, apparently. Now, he likes to cite that he has 700 employees. How could he be expected to remember everybody? This is a key person. This person is primarily responsible for the coordination between consultants doing these bridge inspections, but is also ultimately responsible for the conduct of these inspections, the veracity of the reports, what gets done with this information. That's him. So it's really hard to believe that you have a DOT director who's blaming all these outside consultants for improper documentation or oversights allegedly in the conduct of these inspections. And in the nearly 2 years since they've closed the Westbound Washington Bridge, apparently Director Alviti's never seen fit to figure out who his person was that was heading up all this inspection work. I mean, that's just unbelievable to me. So I believe that's probably true, actually. I mean, he was under oath, Director Alviti. So that just shows you that there was, to me, no attempt whatsoever to get to the bottom of how DOT has performed relative to the Westbound Washington Bridge. There's no political will, there's no interest in it. All they decided to do was, hey, let's sue all the consultants, then we're not able to talk about it, and let's go on with life. And it remains to be seen whether that approach is going to be acceptable to the people of Rhode Island. I don't live here. I still pay federal tax, a lot of tax, and some of it comes here to Rhode Island. I am approaching it more from my dealings, typical dealings with DOTs in the Midwest, where they're far more transparent, vastly more competent, in my opinion, than what you have here. So why the people of Rhode Island would tolerate a DOT that, in my view, has leadership that's rather incompetent. They don't have the ability to oversee their consultants. They apparently have no internal capability of performing these services themselves, according to RiDOT Director Peter Alviti. So I think, in my view, there needs to be a top to bottom restructuring of this DOT. And short of that, get rid of the DOT. If you truly operate the DOT as Director Alviti suggests, that they're basically a contracting organization, then all you need is the Department of Administration. You don't need the DOT in the middle between the Department of Administration and the consultants. So get rid of the DOT. Now, of course, that sounds rather ludicrous, but I think that's less ludicrous sounding than the notion that you have a DOT that's incapable of any technical oversight of things like a bridge that involve a tremendous amount of technical knowledge, construction knowledge. It's just unbelievable to me. I want to send a shout out to those of you who've contributed to buy me a coffee. That's one of the better ways to support this channel. I also want to thank the channel members who typically get to preview videos a day or more in advance of them being released publicly. And I certainly want to thank those of you who have provided super thanks. Stay tuned, everyone. Many more episodes to follow on the ongoing Washington Bridge saga.